Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan.
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight, we're talking about a few things first.
Taking it easy.
We're taking it a little easy. But James wants to give his thoughts, first of all, on Metro Exodus.
Metro Exodus. So one of the things we wanted to do with Tuesday Review is not just talk about movies, but also talk about comic books and video games and TV shows.
Pop culture generally.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like a pop culture discussion show. But unfortunately, because we're live on the radio and we only have the hour, it's like we're doing like a 2-3 hour show crammed into 55 minutes to an hour. So we never ever really get to talk about video games. So I just finished Metro Exodus a couple of days ago, and I thought I'd talk about it because I have some thoughts about it because I really liked the first two games, and I was really looking forward to Metro Exodus.
Now, I have played the first two games as well.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed them.
They're really good. I remember when the gameplay videos were coming out
It looked amazing.
for Metro Exodus, it was like, this is it. Like, this is going to be the best game in the series. This is going to, like, change the way people think about Metro games. In practice, though, a lot of those things that I was excited about don't really work as well as they should.
I mean, to be honest, I haven't heard a lot about this game outside of ray tracing on PC. Like, all the internet sites are just like, ray tracing. I'm like, but I haven't heard anything about the quality of the game outside of that.
It's not a bad game. It's very well made, but it has all these little problems that end up... All these problems add up to this big thing that I feel like all this stuff in the game could be funneled into something much better. Like, I guess in terms of the pros, the graphics are amazing. Like, Metro games have always looked good, and this is, like, incredible. Like,
this game would have to work harder to look good because the first two games are in a more claustrophobic environment, less assets needed.
Yeah.
Like, it's easier to make a game look good when it's in a smaller scope, I guess.
But in this one, because now it's open world, it's like it has to work much harder.
There's like atmosphere and weather effects and everything else.
But it just looks great, and the environments are gorgeous. Like, just everything looks really good. And you know, Metro games have always had cool designs of things. You know, like the armored suits and the gas masks and the kind of weapons, kind of hodgepodge, strapped together with duct tape and bits of pipe and stuff. Like, it's all really cool. And the game plays pretty well. I really like the weapon customization and upgrade system. That's really cool. And the whole like crafting system that you have this backpack, and you can, when you're out in the world, you can...
Oh, I read about that.
Yeah, you can take it off wherever you are, put it on the ground, and like change what attachment you have on your gun, or you can craft med kits or Molotov cocktails or stuff like that. And like, you can find things in the environment, like little scraps and bits and pieces to...
See, that's really cool because not a lot of games anymore sort of like let you change your weapon on the fly like that.
I mean, the whole crafting thing's a really big deal in like almost all open world games now. But the whole like
the accessibility,
like stopping and putting your bag down, and like if you're outside and you have a long range scope on your rifle, and then you have to go inside, you can put down your bag, slap on a short range scope and a silencer, because you're going into a small building filled with enemies.
But that's so cool because it means you don't have to stockpile different weapons for different...
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's probably the best part of the game. And I really like that, and like the animations for that is really cool. The problem is that because it's now open world, a lot of what made Metro work in the first two games is now kind of lost, because you lose that claustrophobic nature, you lose those kind of horror elements.
When you can see in every direction.
Exactly, yeah. And it becomes like every other Far Cry or Fallout.
Sounds like Stalker more than Metro to me.
Yeah, it becomes more like Stalker, and people like those open world games, and I enjoy those games. But Metro's Metro for a reason.
It's in the name, one would say.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't spend any time in the Metro in this game. And the best levels of Metro Exodus are the ones like set in tunnels and in indoors and other claustrophobic ones. Like those are the best parts of the game. The open world bits just feels like all this vast emptiness.
And after a certain point, now I haven't played this game, but it's a problem that a lot of other open world games suffer from, is the maps are too big and there's no point to them.
Yeah, and like this is an open world in the same way as like Far Cry or Fallout is, where it's like true open world where you can just walk anywhere. This is more like really large open sandbox levels, and then once you've completed everything in that level, you can get on the train and go to the next open world level.
But like, are all the objectives in the open area, are they story based, or are they just there? Are they just filler?
Yeah, you can do, so there's story objectives and then there's side quests. And then there's obviously places to explore to get loot and to get attachments, find attachments and equipment and stuff. So it's open world in the sense that it just drops you in and says, here's your objective marker, but how you get there is up to you. Which,
sounds okay.
Can be a good thing, but it can also be very dangerous, because then a lot of the times with these games, you end up just wandering around.
The Skyrim problem.
There's either a lot of empty nothingness, or there's just like a lot of crap to the point where you start to feel worn down.
Because large open spaces are a problem in video games a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like you take the Assassin's Creed, and I was trying to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I got to a point where the maps are so big, and there's objectives everywhere that I'm just like, I really can't be bothered.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and there's no reason for me to go do the same things in every zone over and over again.
Yeah, I really, really liked Red Dead Redemption 2, and it was such a well-made game, but it kind of starts to show those open world problems. And Metro Exodus has this as well, where it's like you're given this huge open world sandbox to play in. One, there's either too much to do, or two, they developers start telling you what to do, and you're like, no, just let me play. And then they're like, no, here's a scripted sequence, or here's a bunch of enemies you're not allowed to kill, and if you kill them, you get negative karma points. And so, just let me play. Don't tell me what to do. You made this gorgeous, huge world for me to run around in.
I'll take the negative points if I want the negative points.
And
let me get the negative points.
That's another thing I hate. Like all the Metro games have done this to an extent, but I think Metro Exodus probably does this the worst. But this is a thing I hate that a lot of video games do. The arbitrary honor system. Get rid of it. I know it's an RPG thing. You can be a black hat, you can be a white hat. If you do bad things, things get harder for you. If you do good things,
It only really makes sense in an RPG, though.
Yeah, and Metro Exodus is an FPS. It has some small RPG elements, but it's not an RPG. So yeah, it doesn't make sense in this.
That's much more of a Fallout system.
Exactly, and it's annoying, especially because the game doesn't really tell you when it's okay to kill people and when it's not okay. You just kind of have to guess. But also it's like, if there are some guys you don't want to kill, so you try to sneak past them, and one of them spots you, he immediately tries to murder you. So
and if you kill him, you get the negative points.
Exactly. So it's like, but that's self-defense, right? But then on top of that is that it doesn't have save slots. It just automatically what do you call it,
overwrites your
and it saves a checkpoint every couple of minutes.
That sucks.
If you're doing a stealth run where I want to get good karma and not kill anyone and sneak through this level, and you accidentally kill someone or someone spots you, you're screwed, basically.
That sucks. Yeah,
luckily I snuck through most of the game and I did good enough, and I didn't kill people I didn't have to, enough that I got the good ending. But still, it's like, I was just kind of angry at the game at the end of it. I was just like, what? Don't judge me for how I want to play the game. Let me play the game how I want to play it, and you tell the story you want to tell. Don't have a different cutscene at the end just because I killed too many people.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think that's a perfectly valid way of making a game, is the ability to choose because that's your point is your point is valid for games in which you want it to be a completely linear story. Yeah. But if you want the world to evolve around you, even if it's behind the scenes, I think that the idea of the multiple endings, like
there's two endings, and they're just pretty much just different cutscenes, and that's what I'm opposed to. Now, if you're playing a game and it changes the levels, it changes the environments, if it changes the encounters you have with other characters, if every time you make a decision it's branching off to a new path, that's what the game's designed to be. You know, Dishonored had this problem as well. You play the whole game not killing anyone, and you get the good ending, which is just a cutscene of everything's happy, yay. If you kill everyone, you get a bad ending, which is pretty much the same cutscene except like tinted red, and it's like no one's happy, bad. I'm like, well, nothing changed in the game.
I think
a few little things did, but not enough for you to enforce that.
I liked that system in Dishonored. I wouldn't call it a problem. I think it's less of a problem or more of a design decision that you don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, but it's just that they're judging you for how you want to play the game, and then at the end of it, just going like, "Here's a different cutscene."
It's not like they're hiding that fact from you, right? It's not like it's hidden in the terms and conditions, in the fine print or something.
I got the good ending of Dishonored, and I didn't kill it. Like, I'm not saying that I got the wrong ending. I'm mad. It's just I felt that, like, what's the point of me playing the game in a certain way just to get the good ending or the true ending?
So did they tell people that this was going to be in the game before release, or did they spring it on people?
I honestly can't remember.
Because I would agree with you, if that was just a feature they didn't advertise before the game was released.
I just feel like the whole thing, in some games it works.
Its implementation is garbage. That's what I think what James is getting at.
Its implementation in most games, and Dishonored I had this problem with, but Metro Exodus, it's arbitrary. It's like, don't kill it. Yeah, it's like they'll do a level where a whole bunch of guys are just running at you, and you just have to machine gun them down. And then the next level, oh no, you have to sneak past these guys because these guys aren't that bad. But if you kill them, you get negative honor points. Then the next mission, a whole bunch of other guys come in, you have to gun them down.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, like
one game that
you either kill everyone or you don't.
Yeah, one game that did this system really well was Prey. The rebooted Prey, not the original one on Xbox. For old listeners at home.
Oh man, I'm still
mad
out that Prey 2
Yeah, that looked really cool. Anyway, how they did it in Prey was your character you can decide whether your character wants to use the sort of alien symbiote powers or not.
Yeah.
And you'll get a different experience through the whole game depending on whether you do or you don't.
Yeah.
If you do use the powers, then some of the enemies will be more aggressive to you and some won't. You'll be able to understand the language of some of these creatures if you do.
Yeah.
You become more of the symbiote than not.
Yeah.
If you choose the human route, some of the sort of NPC characters, as far as I can remember, would have different reactions to you if you're more human than symbiote.
That changes gameplay.
That changes gameplay. It changes the environment.
Balance.
That changes level design.
Yeah, Deus Ex does the same thing.
Yeah.
Where that's more of an RPG, but that's the same thing where you can choose to be bad or good, and the world changes depending on the way.
So there are games that do it well, and they, as you said, they change the level design. Yeah. They change how you interact with the game as well to sort of, I guess, corral you into that experience that you're sort of leaning towards.
Yeah.
But I think what James is referring to, the implementation where it's like, oh, if you just kill this guy, kill that guy, it's going to change the effect at the end when you have no other indication that it's changing anything.
And that's one of my problems with the game is, like, it wants to be an RPG, but it has very little RPG elements. And so if you're going to do this big open world thing, you have to start bringing in RPG elements.
That's fair.
And I'm not the biggest fan of RPGs, and I don't think Metro Exodus should go into RPG territory.
It should be a shooter.
Exactly. But if you're going to start doing these things in a Metro game, you're going to have to also balance it out with RPG elements. An example is there's a arbitrary gun condition system, where if you use your gun too much, or if it gets dirty, it starts to degrade and it starts to jam. Now, normally in an RPG, that wouldn't be a problem because, there's an indicator that tells you how dirty or damaged your gun is. There's ways to clean it, etc.
Weapon durability.
Durability, yes. In Metro Exodus, there's no indicator telling you how dirty or damaged it is until you get to a workbench in your safe house, and then you can clean it.
That's just bad game design.
Now, I've already said that you can get your backpack and put attachments on your gun and craft weapons and medkits and so on, but there's no way to clean your gun on the fly. So if you...
That's inconsistent.
Yes. So if you're out in this big, huge sandbox open world, and you're using a gun a lot, and there's some mud, and you fall in some water, and your gun starts to jam, you can't clean it until you get you get back. Like, you have to keep going. Also, there's no indicator to tell you how bad it is. And also, if you're swapping it for another weapon you find, there's no indicator telling you if yours is better condition than theirs is.
That's just bad game design. It's oversight.
That's standard RPG stuff, which needs to be in this game if you're going to do that crappy
that's not even like
gun conditions.
Like, that's just good design, not even RPG stuff. Like, even if there was no RPG elements in the game at all and it was just an FPS, you'd expect that indicator.
Like I'd have a gun and it'd start to degrade, and I'd find a dead enemy with the same gun, and I'd be like, well, great, I'll just swap it for their gun and it'll be clean, great, won't jam. And I swap it and it's like still terrible. I'm like, what's going on?
The bad guys don't take good care of their guns.
Yeah. So it's like there's that, and there's also, like, because the world is so big, in a normal sort of Far Cry kind of game, movement is faster. There's lots of vehicles. There are fast fast travel
to compensate.
Yeah, to compensate. But in Metro Exodus, it's still got the Metro style of gameplay where everything's slow. And the weapons are slow, fire rate's slow, loading is slow. Because in the first couple of Metro games, it's more like horror, it's more claustrophobic, it's more about stealth. And now you get to open world, and it's like everything's slow and sluggish. The sensitivity is so low that I had to max it, and it still was just sluggish, and I couldn't, like... And also, the main character seems to have baby legs, because he walks around like with little steps. He goes, yeah. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, this is open world. Like, he needs to take strides. But you look down with the camera and you can see his legs, and they're moving normally. But the sound effect is like, and it's so annoying. But also, you keep, like, tripping on, like, little rocks and like...
Lift your feet, bro!
Yeah, I'm just like, lift your feet. I'm like, you've made this huge open world map, and I can't even traverse it without, like, tripping and being really slow.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Yeah. Like, it's just... Also, like, in the first couple of Metro games, when you find a body with some ammo on its vest or whatever, or if you find a box, an ammo box, you just click X and it opens the box, click X and it collects everything inside. Click X and it takes the ammo off the body. Now, in this Metro Exodus, it's hold X. So everything is slowed down. So if you find a crate, hold X to open the crate.
Should be the opposite. Like, you're expanding the scope of everything. It should be the opposite. Everything should be quicker.
Everything should be quick. But it's not. Everything's slow and sluggish. And that really harms the game, especially when you're trying to be a more open world experience. Also, one of the problems is everyone in the game, like all the NPCs, always talking, constantly. And they talk really loudly, and they all talk over each other.
So it's like real life.
Yeah, which is great in real life, that's really authentic, But
you try to listen to dialogue.
I can't tell what's important. I can't tell where people are coming from. If enemies are approaching from my left, I can't tell that because everyone's yelling and they're all talking over each other. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know I don't know if sometimes I'm doing a stealth run. I don't know if they've spotted me or they're just angry at each other,
They bicker a lot. That's what I'm thinking. The enemies bicker a lot. I don't know if they're angry at me or each other. Can they stop?
And the whole game becomes cluttered, not just the voices, like just the sound design. Everything's cluttered. Everything's layered on each other. You can't really tell where the enemy fire is coming from. The hit indicators aren't a good accurate portrayal of where you should be turning, where you should be running. And in saying this, everyone talks except the main character, Artyom. Now, in the first two games, that makes sense because it's more of a slow sort of game where it's kind of like an older styled FPS like Half-Life, where it makes sense for your character not to say anything because you embody him.
The silent protagonist.
Yes, and also NPC encounters, they happen quickly and efficiently. So you'll bust into a room with a couple of your allies, and they'll be like, Artyom, so great to see you. Here, take some ammo. And you'll be like, cool, take ammo, push X. And your character's not saying anything, but it doesn't really matter. And then they're like, okay, here's your objective. You have to go out this door, there's going to be mutants, and you have to get to the rail car and get to the next station.
Yeah, so the hero is less a personality in its own right and more of a vehicle for story progression.
Yeah. But now that Metro Exodus is this big open world game with this ensemble set of characters loaded onto this train trying to navigate the post-apocalyptic wasteland, and there's this honor system where it's like if you do bad things, certain things will happen, and it's like the main character, like people are yelling at, like there are bits where you sit down for like 5-10 minutes and characters are just talking at you, and you're not saying anything, and you're just sitting there. And it's like some of them.
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah, some of them you can leave, but it's then like if you can leave, why is this in the game? I know it's immersion and you can choose to experience more of the story, but other ones you're forced to sit there while characters all talk over each other really loudly, and I'm just like, no, in this kind of game you need like proper regular cutscenes where your character talks and they're emotional and it's shot like a film, and it's like Last of Us kind of thing, where it's like you develop the relationship between the characters, not just through the gameplay, but also when you get to cutscenes and it's shot like a film and there's like acting, you know?
Yeah.
But in the game, you just sit at a table, you know, in silence, and people are like, you know, yelling and talking, and then it's like you can like click left direction button to take a drink occasionally, and it's like,
so if you got
why
the
is
options,
this?
This game sounds really messy.
And then I'm replaying first Metro, and like there's a bit where you're having a drink at a bar with some of your comrades, and he just drinks automatically a couple of times, and you can look around with the thumbstick to look at them, but they're like, okay, you know, cool, we're done. It's like a minute, 2 minutes, and then it's like on to the next bit. Like, why add these long, boring bits?
I kind of want to say that could be because they don't make these decisions independently. What I'm assuming is quality testing. Maybe the people who were beta testing the game said maybe this is a good idea, and maybe I don't know exactly how the company would make these decisions, but I'm assuming that at some point someone would have said, I think this works this way. There wouldn't have been an agreement, and so they stuck it in the game.
I think it's also like this fake sense of, well, we want you to sit down and experience this world, so we're going to give all these characters lots of dialogue, but we also don't want you to feel like you're just sitting there doing nothing. So we're going to give you this boring system where you can click something to drink occasionally, so you still feel like you're playing a game.
What is it? The fake sentiment of free will.
Yeah,
I can drink if I want.
Yeah, and it's kind of like but it's also like they wouldn't make a 10-minute cutscene. Some games would, but this game wouldn't like force you to watch a 10-minute cinematic. So why is it forcing me to sit at a table and listen to all these guys yelling? Like, just give me the information I need in a cutscene and then move on.
My slightly pessimistic answer?
Yeah.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's at the end of the line, the company might have been under the pump.
But
it's cheaper for the company to be like, no, we're not going to cast Artyom.
Yeah.
We're just going to have...
But see, Artyom has a voice actor. He speaks during the loading screens. So, well, look, but also, if it's cheaper, then why not just do the thing that the first two games did, where if you are forced into a scene with other characters where they talk with you, or you know, it's more like Half-Life, where it's like you stop, you listen, you look around, and that's next mission. Well, not sitting around.
The practical answer is engine changes. So the first engine, that might have been a simple thing, and the fact that it's claustrophobic. So Metro 1 was kind of linear, so you...
I don't think so. I think it'd work in the same sort of way.
Well, the thing is, as Nathan was saying, in terms of the budget, if you're doing a cinematic, you have to... That's not... Like, cinematics are made by hand. They're a 5-minute video that the 3D artists put together.
Yeah. If
you're doing, as you said, in the scenes where you sit down and you can choose to drink or not, that's in-game assets which already exist.
But I'm saying is you can still do those in-game Half-Life style cutscenes.
They still happen in the game.
Do it like the first two games, where it's just short, sweet. You get to the point.
They probably thought it was off-putting because it's an open world game.
Yeah, and I think they also want to do that thing where it's like, we want to, get you emotionally attached to the characters. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. You can do that without forcing me to sit in front of them while they yell at me. And I'm not allowed to do anything or say anything.
But all of this just reeks off design by committee.
That's what I meant by the choices.
Yeah.
It sounds like the designers probably had input from other people, and they were forced to act on those decisions.
Yeah, it's like the developers were told, possibly by the publisher, we want the honor system.
Yeah, maybe
we want X, Y,
what
and
do people
Z.
like from other games, and how can we incorporate it?
Maybe after the second Metro game, they're like, you have to go bigger, you have to go more like Far Cry, you have to go more like Fallout, which doesn't really work.
Which doesn't
at the end of
suit the IP.
But again, that's like art generally, though. they make movies by committee now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like
it's like we have to go bigger.
All music's done by committee too.
Yeah, it's an art problem. It's the classic developer versus publisher, director versus studio kind of debacle.
Yeah, like ideally, you could do a really good semi-open world Metro game, still set it in and around the Metro, but do more like fast travel, like The Darkness, where you can catch the subway to other stations, and then there's like a big open world level, and then you get back on the subway and go to another.
It'd also be really cool if the open world, so to speak, was the underground.
Exactly, and also on top of that, if you wanted more of the surface levels, which, depending on who you speak to, aren't the best part of the Metro games.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be cool if the surface is a big open world, and then the underground Metro system exists as like a second map. So two maps on top of each other.
Vertical,
Yeah, and it's like, and you can go under the surface and just run in a straight line and then go down and you're at another station. Or you can go through the tunnels. Either way is dangerous. Either way has its pros and cons. Like, that's a much better game. Now, I also understand the story they wanted to tell in Metro Exodus was more... It's about Exodus. It's about getting away from Metro. It's about finding a better life. But, yeah, I don't really feel like...
It didn't pay off.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like Metro. And like I said, I'm replaying Metro 2033, the first one, and it's just a much better game. And it's like 9 years old now. And
it still holds up.
It still holds up.
It's the reason movies from the 80s were so good and the 70s. When you're limited, but when you're technically limited, you use what you can work with.
Yeah. So but see, in movies, the sequels are almost never as good as the first one. In games, that's usually the opposite. Usually the first one's a bit clunky, and then as they go on, they develop more and they... But I think now we're
independent developers, yes.
Yeah, but no. I think just in terms of like the Mario games or the Hitman games, it's like
over a long period of time, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone thinks Silent Hill 2 is the best one. Everyone thinks Hitman 2 is the best one. Everyone thinks San Andreas is the best GTA. But now I think we're getting to a point where there's this whole developer versus publisher problem, and there's this whole loot box problem, and it's just like. They keep ruining...
It reminds me of the argument we've had many times about CGI. When you can do everything, there's no one to stop you. So when they could do everything with Metro, they lost sight of what made the original game so good because their focus was so wide that they were like, what can we fit in instead of what should we leave out?
Yeah. And, some people saying well, if it's more like Stalker or Fallout or Far Cry... Who cares? We like those games. That's cool.
But it's not Metro, though.
Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but I can play those other games if I want that, Yeah. Or, alternatively, make your system more tailored towards that open world so that it works more as an open world game.
And semi-unpopular opinion here. Those games aren't that great.
I stopped playing Far Cry.
I stopped playing Far Cry many years ago. You look at the new Far Cry game. It's literally just a reskin of Far Cry 5.
Yeah, they just keep reskinning them every year.
Keep reskinning them every year.
Yeah.
What's the point in playing them?
Yeah, like I said, the best levels of Metro Exodus are the indoor claustrophobic ones where you have to manage resources.
Know your audience.
And there's stealth. Yeah. So overall, I think I enjoyed the game, and it's presented well, and the developers obviously worked really hard on it. And I think at one point in the future, I would like to play it again, knowing what I'm getting into. You know, having that second playthrough mindset, I think would help. But yeah, like, all these problems add up to a point where there were long stretches of the game where I'm like, I'm not having fun.
Oh, man.
There's a whole desert level which people in reviews are saying this level's amazing. I'm like, I was bored. Like, this is just Mad Max. What was that game? Not Borderlands. Well, Borderlands, yeah.
They did make a Mad Max game.
Yeah, there was a Mad Max, there was Borderlands, and then there was Rage.
Rage, yeah.
I'm like, this is just Rage. Like I'm just, you know, running around in these sand dunes, and there are mutants coming up, and
Just because the game looks good doesn't mean that it is good.
yeah, and I'm just like, this is, you know, I wasn't having fun. And the bits that were fun, where you're in the metro or you're in a shell of a building, and there are like,
It should be this. My vision of Metro.
yeah,
It should, in spirit, be closer to a game like Alien Isolation than it should be to Fallout.
yeah,
It should be, as you said, a claustrophobic, dark
yeah,
kind of, you know, are you going to survive experience, less than that kind of, here's your world, go free, do whatever you want.
yeah,
Because that's not the point of the Russian dystopian story.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because doesn't Metro come out of that Russian dystopian tradition?
Well, yeah, it's based on, I think, on
It's based on
it's based in it's set in Russia, and it's based on books, I think, by a Ukrainian or Russian author. So
Like, that's never the point. Any of those dystopian stories, whether Russian or not,
yeah,
the point isn't, look at this beautiful world for you to explore.
Yeah.
It's a harsh world.
Exactly.
Do what you can to survive. You can't go anywhere you want.
yeah, like there were points where I'm on the surface, and I'm just like, the whole point of Metro was that the surface was irradiated, and when you have to go on the surface, it's the most dangerous place. But in this game, it's like, well, we got the train now, we can go to other places where it's less irradiated.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, now this is a completely different game now. There's like trees and waterfalls, and I'm like, what?
You just wait for Cyberpunk. Everything will be better with time.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I don't think that game can be disappointing, but if it is, it'll be the most devastating disappointment.
It won't be.
So yeah, I mean, I took up too much of the show with that, but
That's
yeah,
all
it's
right.
it's
It was a
like,
good discussion.
yeah, it's like there's always games and stuff I want to talk about, but it's like we never have time. But I thought this is the perfect time to do it.
It promoted some good discussion.
Yeah. Also, like Resident Evil 2 is amazing.
I've heard good things.
It's so good.
X
Have
can
you
give
seen
it to you.
There's a mod you can
X
get
gonna
on the
give it
there's
to
a mod you can get on the PC version
Yeah.
that plays that song whenever he comes
when
in.
Mr. X comes in, yeah. Man, it's so good.
And there's
like,
also a Thomas the Tank Engine mod
Yeah.
now. That's amazing.
yeah. But like the game is so good. Even if you don't like Resident Evil games, or if you've never played them before, I highly recommend Resident Evil 2. Like
The new
one
one,
of
not
my
the
favorite.
not the original.
no, the
Maybe the original.
the remake, yeah,
Yeah.
or remake. Well, yeah, no, it's a remake because
It's not a
Completely
remaster.
remade. Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about it as well is they
Get to tell that
they
story of their
the
new
way
the new tech.
the way they redesign it, but also stay true to the original is really great. But yeah, we'll move on. We're running out of time. I guess we'll talk a bit about Russian Doll, which
Oh man,
we mentioned last week. It's such a good show.
it's probably, as you said, I can't think of a show of this type that
yeah.
is better.
Like, honestly, it's like the best comedy sci-fi combination,
Time loop
kind
type,
of time
Groundhog
loopy,
Day-ish.
Groundhog Day sort of thing in, like, I don't know.
Modern history.
Yeah, like it's
It's
so well written, and also like we didn't really get to talk about last week, but I was like, because you watch the trailer and it's like, well, yeah, it's just Groundhog Day, but I think what's one of the best things about Russian Doll is that it takes the Groundhog Day formula and just uses that as the basis to tell its own story, to go on its own journey.
The thing about the show is that the sort of, we'll call it the time loop,
Yeah.
is not. It's about the time loop, but it's not really about the time loop.
Yeah.
It's about her, and it's about
the characters.
It's about the characters.
Yeah.
It's about I forget her name now.
Nadia,
and what's the other guy's name?
Alan.
It's about Alan and Nadia's sort of emotional journey. It's not really about the time loop at all.
No, but it uses that as
that as a vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting discussion, is like Groundhog Day as a genre. Because there's those Happy Death Day movies, which I haven't seen, and there are lots of other movies that use the same Groundhog
Trope.
Day trope. but I think this one uses it so well. And I think from now on, if Groundhog Day, like, it becomes a genre, like, it's like, oh yeah, it's a time loop, but here's how we do it differently. Like, I'm not saying there's going to be a lot of shows and movies that do it now.
There's a few,
but yeah, there has been a few, and it's interesting. It's an interesting concept to explore without just like remaking the Groundhog Day.
No, it's really good. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, it's a show about two broken people and how they overcome, but frankly, mental illness, post-traumatic distress, and other childhood traumas, and emotional difficulty.
Like, it's... Like I said last week, the trailer doesn't do it justice. So if you're on the fence about watching it like I was, just dive in.
The trailer pretty much just paints it as like, oh, it's like almost like a witty Jewish New York comedy, like something like Woody Allen would give you.
Yeah.
But like, no, not at all.
Like, it becomes like so twisted and so complex as it goes on that I was like, the last couple of episodes, I'm like, this is some like top sci-fi shit. Like, I'm loving this. I also like how it ends satisfyingly enough. It kind of wraps everything enough that if there doesn't make any more, I would be fine with that. But apparently, the creators have 3 seasons planned, and that
interesting.
That they pitched to Netflix.
That's really interesting.
And the show seems to be doing well enough that I'm pretty sure Netflix would be up for those 3 seasons.
Because the way I ended, I just thought it was like, that was it.
It's self-contained.
It's self-contained.
Yeah, and then,
so do you know any more information?
That's all they've said.
What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to continue with the same 2 protagonists?
I don't know.
Or is it going to be like a new loop?
Honestly,
so a quote-unquote new time loop.
Honestly, the only thing that's a dangling thread
is maybe horse?
Is
I don't know, like, some of the side characters?
Is like, who is the force that is putting them in the time loop? Because there is a point where it's not. It's made clear that it's not just a like naturally occurring phenomenon. Like, there's something. Now, whether that's just a figment of Nadia's imagination or whatever, but there's something that like is doing it to her. Like, it's not just Groundhog Day where it's just a magical thing that happens.
It's referencing the scene, minor spoilers.
Something talks to her.
Yeah, something sort of talks to her in like what could be like a vision or hallucination.
Yeah, in Groundhog Day, things always stay the same each loop, but
there are minor changes in this.
In Russian Doll, the more loops that happen, things start disappearing, things start getting added, this, that, and the other.
Things degrade.
Yes, so like you could explore why that's happening, whether it's all in her head or whether it's a simulation or whether there's some sort of being or force that is doing it to her. So I think that might be interesting.
Yeah, it's an argument about is it sort of thing like she's destroying herself?
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of, there's a whole argument to be made about the fact that she could be destroying herself because she can't move on from certain issues in her, her life.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Alan.
Yeah.
Or there's the argument that is it aliens? Is it God?
Yeah.
Is it some outside force acting upon them?
I think, like with Groundhog Day, the best thing would be not to explain it. But you can explore, like, characters can question stuff. I think that's what I love about Nadia, is that she's like a party animal. She's a chain smoker. Like, but she kind of gets a grip of it pretty quickly, and then she starts investigating, and she becomes like a detective, like sci-fi detective. That's why I like, on Twitter I compared her to like a Doctor Who. Like, she's the best Doctor Who in years. Like, because she's figuring it all out. Yeah. Like, she's like, what's going on? We're stuck. It's like,
she's
but this
doing
happens.
Experiments.
Yeah. And she's like getting other people to figure it out. And
I think your discussion about the Groundhog Day trope, I just realised that's what was so bad about The Endless, was that they had this cool idea and they went too far explaining it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
over-explaining it,
the prologue movie,
I
was good because it wasn't explained.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'd be good. It'd be good if they don't over-explain it.
Because that's a sacred, like, there are sacred mysteries, which just make it more engaging.
Mm. Yeah,
and that's not only, that's in all sci-fi and all fantasy. Sometimes we
just don't need to know.
Yeah, when you explain the sacred mystery, it sucks.
Yeah,
and I
midichlorians.
Feel like,
that's exactly
you ruined it.
The most valid point you could make.
Yeah,
is, of course, as always, a Star Wars point.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the Force isn't supposed to be explained.
Yeah, no,
leave it alone.
leave
It
it
is
alone.
what it is.
Obi-Wan explains it in the first movie where he says it's a force that binds everything together, it surrounds us. And then Yoda explains it again in Empire Strikes Back when he's like, it's in the tree, it's in the rock, you know. And then George Lucas was like, no, that's not enough. I have to give people space cancer. It's like, anyway, we won't get into it.
No, like one of the other things I liked about this show is that it was a little bit noir. I feel like it had some sort of like
like New York detective
atmosphere. Like the whole atmosphere of the show was really good.
It's also like it's really funny.
It's
like,
so
really,
funny,
really funny. But also the sci-fi and like that kind of stuff is really good.
But it balances the humor out
and
with
the
genuine
the
emotional feels.
Yeah, the emotional feels are good. We're running out of time. I'll quickly mention the Orville because you guys aren't up to date with the latest episode.
I'm a couple episodes behind.
But the latest episode was amazing.
Is something to do with Isaac?
Yes, but like it's the first episode of the Orville I've watched twice in a row.
Oh, wow.
And it has the best space battle I've seen in ages. Like decade. I don't know. Years.
With their CG budget?
Yes. So I
thought all the CG budget went to the animal in the episode.
Episode 3. But like, honestly, like I think they're saving all their budget for this episode, and this isn't even the finale. So it's like,
oh my God,
all the episodes after this are probably going to be like low budget bottle episodes, but this one is amazing. It puts both Star Trek and Star Wars to shame. The new stuff.
Wow.
Like it is doing stuff. Not just action, but like character and emotional stuff that Star Trek has completely lost sight of.
Well, we've discussed in the past that the Orville is probably one of the best shows going for like science fiction character dramas.
Yeah. And you know why? Because it has likable, fun characters that we want to see more of and that we like to see interact.
And real relatable problems, like Bortus's porn addiction. Which is like one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen.
Very hard to explain that one.
Yeah.
But like that's why it's not just a comedy, it's not just a sci-fi. Like it's a fun show that has like well-written characters and stories.
I'll have to catch up.
Definitely. The latest episode, amazing. Also, like the music, the score.
Oh, the score's always
incredible.
Good because Seth MacFarlane is a jazz hand.
Yeah, like I forgot to.
Like he's all about the music.
Yeah, like I forgot to mention it when we talked about it a few episodes ago. But like Seth MacFarlane's really into that old school like big band,
classical
and,
jazz swing.
Yeah, like classical orchestral scores. Like a lot of people probably don't even think about it, but all the score for Family Guy is all like big band kind of jazzy.
And he's not a bad singer.
It's all and it's all like orchestrated, and now he's got a sci-fi show, so he can go like full Star Wars, like
sweeping
themes.
Yeah.
And all the episodes have this, but this because of now it's like full into the space battle territory. It's just like really on show, and it's just amazing. So last thing, True Detective.
Yeah, sounds good.
Season 3 was good, but in my personal estimation, not as good as Season 1, which still is the reigning champ.
So one of the problems with Season 3 is that it'll never be Season 1.
And that's not to say I don't like Season 3.
No, Season 3 is good, but I think this is going to be a problem with if True Detective continues. You're never going to get to that Season 1, and that's going to be...
I don't think anyone really expects it either.
No, it's like, that's not a terrible... Like, I think people understand that, but it's also like... That's also kind of like, you're never going to live up to your older brother, whatever, So it's kind of like... It's always going to be disappointing that we're never going to get that level of
I found
quality.
This season... Now, this is a failing on my part, probably. I found it sometimes quite hard to follow with all the time skips.
One of my notes is actually that it's surprisingly easy to follow even with its time skips.
No, I mean, there were a couple of things where I'm just like, wait, I forgot that something happened in 80 and they're talking about it in...
Wait a minute. You guys watched it week to week, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I binged it.
Yeah, so it's easier for you to follow along.
Another
if you
point
watch it.
for binging.
I
Yeah.
imagine it will be easier to follow when you're consuming it all at once.
Yeah, but
which is why
we-
premium cable and streaming shows should be binged.
I agree.
No matter what HBO says.
I agree, but like if you're watching it week to week, it can be noticeably harder to follow along with all three. So we'll call them three timelines going at once in the episodes. If they were doing it in a linear fashion, then it would be easier.
Yeah, well, actually, I'd be interested to see a linear fan edit just for curiosity.
That would be interesting.
Even though I think the non-linear time skips work for what the show's doing, and I like them.
The non-linear time skips enable the sort of, I guess, we'll say filtering of information.
Yeah.
So that you can learn about something when they're talking about it in a different decade or whatever the case may be. It works.
Yeah.
It does work. But in a week-to-week sort of format, it was kind of a little hard to follow along at some points.
I haven't finished the show, but I didn't find that really myself. I thought that I was pretty on top of things, apart from a few. I forgot which episode a few events happened. I knew events happened, but I forgot which episode.
Yeah.
But I didn't find that much. It wasn't that complicated to follow.
Yeah, no, I think it's very well written and edited because of the time skips and the non-linear fashion. I was still like able to follow and sort of understand where people, and because it also adds to the mystery because the characters talk about things in present day that happened in 1980 that you haven't seen yet. And it's like, well, they could have just shown that before, but it's like it adds to the mystery. And then there's like the 1990 segment in the middle, which adds even more because it's like, well, if there was a section in between, what happened in between? You know, like it adds to the overall mystery of it, which I think is what these shows are about. You know?
And then one of the other things, I wasn't quite let down with the ending, but I got a little bit of conspiracy blue balls.
Yeah, I think it's more about the character's personal journey.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah, I think one of the I don't know if it's a problem, but season 3 is sort of like a remix of season 1. It has a lot of the same themes, a lot of the same elements. And I think some of that is a reaction to season 2, which didn't...
Understandable.
Yeah, which didn't do very well.
But there was also some of that the conspiracy in season 2 as well. Some of it.
Yeah, but not as much. And like the conspiracy in season 3 is almost the same as the conspiracy in season 1. They even make reference to the conspiracy in season 1.
Set in the same universe.
Exactly. So on one hand, it's good that the show's gotten back to... But also, I would like to see it be different. And I actually liked elements of season 2.
Season 2, look, if season 2 wasn't a True Detective show, it would have been better.
Yeah,
like, I feel
it still has problems.
No, yeah, but like if it wasn't associated
I know what you
with
mean.
True Detective,
Yeah.
I think the reception would have been a lot better.
Definitely.
Especially when it was not on the heels because it came out a while after,
Well,
but
it came
especially
out
directly following season 1.
I think one of the problems with it is it came out like about a year after season 1, which is what normal TV shows do because each season every year or whatever. And it follows on. But because this is like an anthology series where each season is not directly connected and follows different characters.
More development needs to go
yeah.
in. Yeah.
And I think, is it Nick
Pizzolatto?
Yeah. Who created and writes the show.
From here on, heard as just Nick Pizza.
Pizza Boy. He even said, like, I rushed season 2 and that's why it had problems. And that's why it's been 6, 7, 8, and 4 years since season 2, I think 3 or 4 years.
And it benefits from that.
And he said, like, I'm not going to do another one until I'm ready, and he kind of developed it, and that's why season 3 I think is pretty good.
What interested me was originally Mahershala Ali was only going to be a support character.
Really?
And he was Mahershala Ali talked to Nicky Pizza and convinced him to have his character as a primary protagonist character.
Was Stephen Dorff's character supposed to be the main character?
I'm not sure, but I just thought that was interesting because Nicky Pizza didn't originally want race to be a massive part of the... He said it was always going to be a conversation through the show, but it wasn't going to be one of the primary forces of that character at all.
Yeah.
But they had a discussion behind the scenes and they changed the characters, and I think it benefits from it because I can't get enough of Ali.
Oh, he's so good. Like, he
Like the prosthetics or however they do the aging.
Yeah, like, well, yeah,
and the acting
old age,
with that
the
on
old age
point.
makeup is really, really good. But yeah, Mahershala Ali is so good, and he's won the Best Supporting Oscar twice in 3 years.
Hopefully he'll win an Emmy next year
He did
as well.
Moonlight and Green Book, and then if he doesn't win an Emmy for this, like, like he's just so good. But also Stephen Dorff is really good as his partner.
Well, yeah, and he came out and in an interview he said that this is his favorite role he's ever done.
I saw that. Yeah, like
and it shows. It shows like the effort
he really gets to sink his teeth into it.
Also, good news for True Detective fans is that our boy Nicky Pizza is apparently already really excited and working on a story outline for season 4. Apparently, he claims to have a crazy good idea in his words, and he's developing it. He wants to, allegedly, since he already has defined characters from various age periods, he wants to see if he can reuse those. Allegedly, we'll see what happens. I personally wouldn't believe that at first glance.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to see if there's going to be a crossover between some of the characters from different seasons.
It'll be interesting to see what they do if they do a season 4, where, like I was saying, like you're never going to be as good as season 1, and season 3 is really good, but it takes a lot of elements from season 1. Like season 4, I would like to explore some different stuff. You can still have that dark kind of twisted conspiracy, but maybe make it about something else.
And they'd have to be careful using anything from season 1 because you don't want to tarnish.
And then there's that where it's like pretty much since season 1, people are like, we know this is an anthology, but can you just make a sequel to season 1? So whether Pizza says he's reusing characters, he probably just means some supporting characters that you've seen before. But yeah, like,
well, they never really solved the underlying problem in season 1.
Exactly.
So I've always been interested in that thread.
Yeah,
I personally think they probably won't go there, but I would love to see it.
The Yellow King.
Yeah,
that business.
The whole underground
sex ring.
So it's like, on one hand, it'll be cool to explore. You've got more stuff to explore there, but like I was saying, I would also like them to maybe go in a different direction. But then also, you might get something like season 2 where it's like so different that it becomes a bit put off, a bit generic. Yeah. And like I really liked some of season 2.
I like Vince Vaughn in season 2.
I think Vince Vaughn was really good, and I feel like one of the problems with season 2 is that it had 4 main characters instead of 2. It should have just been Vince Vaughn and Colin Farrell, but instead it was Vince Vaughn, Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, and Taylor Kitsch. And I was like, well, what's going on? I think if it was more about the dynamic between Vince Vaughn and Colin Farrell, and if Colin Farrell didn't wear that stupid outfit and have that stupid mustache, like it automatically would have been much better season. But
no, I agree.
So
I'm still looking forward to season 4.
Yeah,
because if he's excited about this idea, he'll have a good energy behind it. Because he did phone in season 2.
Well,
he practically admitted.
I'm pretty sure he admitted it, and like, obviously having this time to develop season 3 has worked in its favour. And if
something got him excited.
But if he rushes into season 4, that could be trouble. So hopefully I think he has a good enough relationship with HBO that he can wait a little bit.
Especially with the success of season 3. I think that but mind you, they didn't rush him after season 2.
Game of Thrones coming. They'll be alright. They're just like, you sure, buddy?
Well, yeah.
No. Like, let's be.
They've got once they finish Game of Thrones, then they've got the spin-off of Game of Thrones prequel or whatever.
If they didn't have faith in Nicky Pizza, they wouldn't have given him the time between 2 and 3. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so now I think that he's earned some relief period.
Yes.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But like I said, though, if he's excited about this idea, that means he'll maybe put more effort into it, because season 2 was all fatty.
Yeah.
So and season 3 is better. So I'm hoping if he's got a real good idea, he'll let it gesticulate rather, and we can really see what he can do. You know.
Yeah.
But also the thing is, if HBO had a problem with him and they let him go, there are other networks who will take him. Because by the virtue of an anthology show, like, he can do something completely... If he's doing something completely unrelated every season, it's not that hard for them to axe him and be like, Netflix.
I feel like True Detective is still popular enough that if HBO got rid of the show, 1, that would be a bad choice, and 2, another network would be, like, interested.
Yeah, it'd be like Netflix, Hulu, whoever it is, Amazon.
Yeah.
They would just snap him up and be like, look, just do another anthology.
That's true
call it
too.
something
Even
different.
if they don't have the True Detective
I mean, he
license.
is True Detective.
Yeah, like the fact
in
that
a
it's an
way.
anthology works in his favour because he can get his sort of, at least the basis of his stories made anywhere.
But
That's true,
realistically, I don't think they'll ever cut ties with him as long as he's interested in making new seasons.
Yeah.
I think that as long as he wants to do it,
even if
they're
they do,
interested.
even if they do like every 4 years, it's like that would be still really
That's
cool.
almost almost an ideal situation.
Yeah, like
though.
quality over quantity, I think would
Like
be.
I would say
in
3
this-
years because I want to see.
Well,
it.
yeah, I'm not, but like especially because it's anthology, it's like you have that benefit. You don't have to be like, we want to see season 2, the continuation of last season. You can just be like, well, let's wait a few years and come up with another better story.
Especially with the standard that they set the quality at. Each one is just like a really long movie.
Well, one of the things that makes season 1 the best and why it had such a huge impact was because Cary Fukunaga directed every episode, and so Nikki Pizza wrote every episode, and Cary Fukunaga directed every episode. So it was a long movie. It's only 8 episodes. And it has that sense of coherence and
that long shot. You know what I'm talking about?
the gunfight in the house is like one long take. Yeah, like
it had those moments where people were like, wow.
And season 2 and season 3, they have different directors. It's more like a more normal TV show where you change directors. And the show still looks really good and sounds really good, but it feels more like a TV show. So it'd be interesting if for season 4, they could get a director who's like, I'll be here for the whole season.
I also feel
David Lynch. Who's David Lynch?
Oh man!
I also, if Nikki Pizza writes it and Lynch directs, I'm happy with that. But I also feel like season 3 also lacked some. Like season 1, I can remember lines from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like season 3 doesn't have any memorable. It has memorable
Has a
scenes,
few bits, yeah.
But there's no snappy dialogue that I can just remember.
I think like Jeremy Saulnier, who directed Green Room, which I love, he directed the first 2 episodes. And like I'm sure he was doing other stuff, but I'm like, if he could have done the whole season, I feel like it would have just felt more coherent. Not to say the directing's bad in the other episodes, but I feel like, if season 4, if Nikki Pizza writes it, and then they get a director in who's like, I'll be here the whole time, I will go through all the scripts and visualize it the way I want it, so that every episode feels...
It's like a sense of unity.
Yes.
Very exciting. And we are out of time.
We should have called the show Out of Time, because we never have enough time.
That's true.
I'm sure there's a Back to the Future podcast called Out of Time, and if there's not, we shotgun it.
Dibs. Catch us on Facebook.
Yes.
We are the Tuesday Review.
AU on Twitter.
At Tuesday Review.
Yeah, catch us on Twitter. We tweet spicy memes.
I've made some really terrible memes, so you can catch them there.
At the Tuesday Review AU.
No, just Tuesday Review AU.
At Tuesday Review AU.
Yeah.
You can listen to our podcasts.
Yeah.
Anywhere you get your usual podcast from.
Rate, review, and
we're on
subscribe.
Shout Engine.
And you can catch us right here at 98.9 Northwest FM.
Yeah.
Tuesday nights.
But no one listens live.
No one listens live.
Adios, cousins.